A very warm welcome to this World Game Changers podcast, where your host, Paul D. Lowe, embraces many crucial conversations that compassionately contribute towards creating a better life and world. Paul's intention is very simple: to help get people's inspirational insights and motivational messages out into the world so others may benefit.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this World Game Changers podcast episode. Today, I am joined by a returning guest. Actually, she's so much more than that. She's a fellow director of World Game Changers. And I was going to say another name then. Rebecca Wheele. Rebecca Wheele. First deliberate mistake of the day, listeners.
That's all good. All good to get mistakes out of the way, isn't it? Because otherwise, mistakes are the foundation of success.
Absolutely. And I keep saying there, and that was deliberately as well, because we're going to play with that word a bit, listeners. Anyway, more will be revealed. Blimey, we're really not getting off to a flyer today, are we? Or maybe we are. Anyway, Rebecca, very warm welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, listeners, what's going to happen today? So we have within World Game Changers 10 legs that's been previously alluded to. Now, Rebecca is the director of Leg 1, Awareness Raising and Purposeful Communication. And just for those listeners that haven't heard about what these legs are life-enhancing goals. But Rebecca's not actually going to focus on awareness raising and purposeful communication, although you could say that the dialogue that will unfold actually under her leg is relevant to what we're going to be talking about, and that's leg 2, expanding good health and well-being. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Rebecca and let her take proceedings where she's going to basically host this. Rebecca, enough waffling from me. It's over to you.
All right, thank you. So yeah, as Paul mentioned, this kind of does come under the bracket of health and well-being. But it also is very much in relation to raising awareness. So I was thinking we could dive into the topic of addiction and specifically overcoming addiction. So just to kind of kick things off then, I guess, what strikes me really about addiction is that it shows up in so many ways. There's so many levels of it, and it seems to be this cycle, this kind of need to to be in a state of something else, or to be escaping from something from the moment. And so I wondered, Paul, if you could speak a bit on that, on your experience, and any thoughts that are coming to your mind, and really bearing in mind anyone that's listening that is kind of struggling or is going through whatever varying degree of whatever, level of type of addiction. We can talk about that as well, the different levels. But yeah, anything coming to mind for you?
Definitely. And this wasn't planned, listeners. This has literally just come to me in the moment, fumbling into the introduction of this podcast episode. I semi-humorously introduced the concepts of how many times, particularly when we think we're under pressure, we use the word or whatever. We all do it, and even professional speakers have to work hard to not do it, professional presenters. So what came to me there just in that moment, Rebecca, was that what this speaks to really in addiction is a need. We're into the territory now, the 6 human needs, originated by Tony Robbins. And I've said many times that what a fantastic, powerful model it is. It's a life-changing model. Once we've got that, awareness raised around what it actually does and how it plays out in our lives, it is literally life-changing. So let's give some context to this then. So just a quick recap on the 6 human needs, because this is very relevant to addiction. First one, the need for certainty. We all need certainty. It's really another word for control. I feel comfortable. I've got this. This is about me, my world. And then uncertainty or variety is the second one. The third one is the need for significance. The fourth one is the need for love and connection. The fifth one is the need for growth. And the highest spiritual human need of all is the need for contribution. But what this does really, Rebecca, to answer your question, it addresses that very first need. Why do we keep saying as humans? It's certainty. We're used to it. You know, it gives us that certainty and that control, because when we speak the way we do, we don't kind of analyze. It's only when we're under that professional spotlight of being, I don't know, a newsreader or even a podcast host. You know, if the experts came on and listened to the average podcast episode, they'd have kittens. It's like, what? Do you realize how many times you and your guest have heard? It's like, well, yeah, but we're more interested in the substance. And I think there's this whole pressure as well of perfection. We have to be careful of this pursuit of perfection. It doesn't matter. Listeners, it doesn't matter that if, Rebecca and I on this particular episode between us, we do a million ers and erms. Well, actually, probably it does, but actually it doesn't. It's more important, the art of communication is being understood. Is it super duper polished and perfect? Well, what's this concept called perfect? What does that mean? So we have to be careful with this. So I think what this is actually, this really is kind of going into your territory, Rebecca, I feel, of leg one, awareness raising and purposeful communication. I know we set out on the banner of, expanding good health and well-being, but just in these few minutes here, I think it really exemplifies and magnifies how things are so simple in life and how they're really strongly connected, whether it's the 10 legs, whether it's the 6 human needs, doesn't matter what it is. Because here we was going to talk about addiction, and I've gone into these 6 human needs around something simple that we all do every day called and that's fine. But unless we've got that awareness raised to know it's fine, we can actually give ourselves a hard time over it. And I know people that do. So and that brings in then, yet again, doesn't it? Those 3 immortal words, let it go. It ain't life or death. Listeners, it doesn't matter that much. If somebody's paying you megabucks to read the news on national TV, might have a point there, might have a point. But how many people does that apply to? Not many. And I think we live our lives addicted to this pursuit of perfection. That's the real addiction, not the addiction per se. It's the underlying thing of got to, should have, would have, could have, and all this pressure that comes with, and this expectation that we'll deliver on a certain, on a certain level. If that all makes sense. Bit of a mouthful there.
No, that all makes sense, definitely. And there's so many things in there that I kind of want to speak to. But yeah, this I'm going to notice every time I do it now. But it's a good thing, because you spoke about the art of communication, and this pause that we do, this that we do, that is this kind of like need for that space to kind of gather our thoughts and have that, I guess, that comfort of that pause, that break in the sentence is a definite need for that control. And but at the same time, I think communication is an art, and I think that it's something that the more that we do, the more that we practice it, and not in the pursuit of perfection, but the pursuit of, I guess, really conveying our message in a way that's going to be really well received by people, not in the sense of like, you know, but by putting our message out there and sharing our insights. Yeah, I don't know, I feel like I'm trading off, but do you see what I mean? Like there's a kind of, it depends in the kind of intention of why you're trying to get better at speaking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But, and you know, and that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Although underneath that always sits that being kind to ourselves.
Yes, true.
And we, you know, as humans, I feel that we lose that. And if we're not careful, you know, you and I have used the phrase more recently about keep going down different rabbit holes. We can lose ourselves quite quickly.
Yeah.
So we just have to be, and this is classic awareness raising. And I find this quite ironic, listeners, that, as I say, Rebecca and I were going to talk about something, you know, called addiction, expanding good health and well-being. And just on that thread and setting out on that, it's interesting how we've come back to Rebecca's leg number one, life enhancing goal number one, awareness raising and purposeful communication around something really simple. But I think the key thing here for me, and certainly the message that I'd like to propound, is just be gentle with yourself. Just be gentle with yourself, because there's that much external pressure, and it is, you know, expectation from the outside world, no matter what role we play in life. You know, there's this whole kind of social conditioning, and particularly with the, you know, the way social media has escalated over the last few years, this pressure. And I think really the message for me, irrespective of how many times or ums might be said in this episode, is starting out and raising that awareness around the power of being gentle to yourself and forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
Because you've not matched up in your self-perceived expectation of what the outside world would like.
But I think also, yes, 100%. And also our expectation of ourselves, because this expectation that we have from the outside world or from social media or from whatever external thing that it is, to some degree, that expectation is something that we put on ourselves as well. And, you know, I think that, so yeah, to be gentle on ourselves is such an important message, because, you know, it does always relate to our relationship with ourselves, even when we think it's from the pressures of the world, or, you know, there's something that can be, you know, discovered there if we dig a bit deeper, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's really making me smile, listeners, as you know, as we're having this conversation around, you know, there was kind of a little bit of preamble between Rebecca and I about, you know, which direction we'd go with this. And it's that art of conversation, and it is an art, as Rebecca referred to previously. It's took us down a completely different path, which actually has met the second human need of variety, or uncertainty, as it's sometimes, you know. We had a kind of a little bit of an idea. Yeah, we'll talk about this. And we was actually, I think it's fair to say, going to start speaking about my alcohol addiction previously. Well, we haven't even mentioned that till just now. Well, I haven't, you know, and here we are on this kind of rich, deep, going all over the place conversation. That's why I call it a dance, because we're all over the floor.
Yeah.
We never said we was ballroom champions here, listeners. You know, we never set the expectation, but we just said we like to dance. And I think there's a great lesson there for us all. Be prepared to dance on life's floor. Just do it. Enjoy it without expectation, without outcome, without pressure. But we don't, do we? We allow ourselves to be pressurized by those external forces of, you know, siblings, parents, well, society. And we get kind of, you know, we become part of that game. And I think, you know, yet again, part of this message is just be yourself, to thine own self be true. You know, kiss the sun, touch the moon. Who cares? Be creative. Try new things. Yeah, you're going to be judged, but you're going to be judged anyway. So you may as well be judged for doing something you want to do rather than being judged and constrained by what the outside world expects and wants you to do. There's a big difference, isn't there? Because there's great freedom in that.
So true. That is so true. And that is such an important message for people to hear. I know I've spent many of my life in that space, and you'll be judged either way. So that's not really the point, is it? Just be true to yourself and just do what you feel is right. But it's easier said than done, for sure. So it's definitely a journey of kind of trying things out. I think if you're feeling like you're struggling with that, or you're in a space where you kind of know the theory of it and you're like, yeah, I kind of get that, but how do I really do that? Or maybe it's simpler than we think it is. Maybe we overcomplicate. But if you are in that space and it's feeling like a struggle, just test it out. For maybe just try it one day. Just think, right, today I'm just gonna have a day where I'm just going to be completely true to myself, and I just want to say exactly what I feel on my heart, and I'm just going to play a bit and experiment a bit and take the pressure off, and do a bit of an experiment and see what happens. Be curious rather than kind of I don't know, being curious is always a good thing.
It definitely is. And as one of the in terms of addressing the how, one of the things that I've often advocated in the past is when you look in the mirror in the bathroom, whether it's a guy having a shave or a girl putting the makeup on, whatever it doesn't matter, but just actually breaking through that conditioning, that ego-driven conditioning, and a simple technique of telling that person in the mirror how much you love them and having a conversation. Now, people think, well, okay, so you're going to talk to yourself in the mirror. Yeah, why not? Why not? Because we have that internal chatter anyway. We might not verbalize it and speak it, but we're having it all the time with our own mind. So there again, we might as well verbalize it and say, okay, do you know what, Paul? While you're having a shave, by the way, boy, you are one handsome young man. You really are. You really are. And play with it and flirt with it and dance with it. Because like I say, all that is an external verbalization of what's going off in the head anyway. And better that you do that and have a bit of fun and play with it rather than this, I know my train's going to be late today, and and if I'm late, I'm going to get the sack, and all this and the stories we tell ourselves. And it's all part of telling ourselves different stories and playing with it and being gentle with ourselves.
That story, that inner dialogue, when that starts to shift, I really feel like life starts to change. And that inner dialogue, I think part of the I don't know, maybe challenge with communication, it's an art, and it is, I feel a lot with myself. I have this internal dialogue, and this relationship with myself, as we all do. And oftentimes what I actually express in words, I feel like there's a kind of not a disconnect, but there's a few steps removed from how I'm actually feeling, or what I'm, feeling in my heart, or actually expressing. And so I think that's part of the, any kind of like being maybe hard on myself or not so forgiving of myself if I have said something, or something that I feel like, that doesn't fully like represent what I actually feel or what I actually think, or but at the same time, as you've alluded to, it's always a dance. We're always just playing with it, dancing with it, talking, we say things, and then it doesn't need to be this perfect thing. It goes back to that perfectionism, doesn't it? So I think for me that may be where the kind of those struggles are, is in feeling like I'm not conveying what I fully feel like I could convey, which perhaps also speaks to this feeling of always trying to be the best version of yourself, and expand, move towards your potential and be your potential, expand your potential, but then you never reach that place because you're always expanding, and it's always lessons, and it's the mistakes actually help towards the lessons. So there's a whole mixture of things in there. So,
and perhaps we become better dancers by choosing better dance partners. I know, yet again, Robbins, I've alluded to him, he has this kind of take on, we become the sum of the people the 5 people we spend most time with. We're influenced, and we kind of become part of them, which kind of, I don't know if I totally resonate with or agree with it, but I think there's strong merits in it.
Yeah. There's definitely something to that.
Yeah, there is. So the more, to use Robbins's model of 5, if we have 5 dance partners in our world that are uplifting, empowering, really love us, really kind of inspire us, lift us up. And it's about energy at the end of the day. It's not so much the words, although words actually do have energy. As we know, they have meaning, they have power, undoubtedly. But certainly from my own perspective, listeners, what I resonate with people first and foremost at a massively deep level is their energy. What's coming across? Because words can be superficial. People can flatter with words. And for me, it's about looking beyond that and actually feeling that vibe of, what is that? Am I really in sync with this person? Never mind what he or she said. Yeah. That's relatively superficial. Are our hearts beating as one here? Are we dancing in tune emotionally and vibrationally? And that's the big one for me. Yeah, that's the real big one. So on that rule of 5 with Robbins, you imagine if you've got 5 people in your life that are like that, you can't help but become an extremely good dancer. You can't help it, because it's just the way you are, because you're inspired, you're connected. Now finding those 5 people, well, that's a different baby altogether, because from my experience, if we find one, we're lucky. To really connect deeply, but with one is beyond words, beyond infinitely. So we can't, but but I suppose to varying degrees, we do connect with those people, and they will have influences. And that's, in putting that in very simple terms, just hang around people that lift you up and make you feel special.
Yes, and make note, not so much as it speaks to what you've just kind of explained with the feeling and the thinking, and the words, but actually the feeling and the vibe, and just make note how you feel after you've seen someone. And if you feel a bit low, or a bit, something doesn't feel quite right, or a bit off, just be aware of that, and if you feel uplifted and energized, and it's all in the feeling. It really is all in the feeling. But I think we lose track of that so easily, especially in just the way the world is at the moment. Not that the world is a particular way, but I just think that generally we're more in the thinking realm, with our jobs and the day-to-day and everything. And so going into that feeling realm, for some people, is unfamiliar.
Yeah. I feel that what we've done over time, we've lost the art. We speak about communication being an art, but another art form is trust. We've lost the art of trusting our own heart.
Yeah,
that's where the real intelligence is. There's an institute in America called HeartMath, and scientific studies have proven that the heart is 5,000 times more intelligent than the mind. Now that's some statement. It's an amazing organization, HeartMath is. I would urge listeners to check it out. It really is. Some of the stuff that they scientifically, not hypothesize, but scientifically offer, is just breathtaking. And there's one statement alone that the heart is 5,000 times more intelligent than the mind. And the mind is an amazing tool. So, well, it's a great servant, but it's a really bad master. It's a bit like alcohol. You know, alcohol is a great servant, but don't let it master you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And which is ironic, because we was going to speak about addiction. So, yeah. So a real mixed bag there, Rebecca, a real mixed bag. And it's only appropriate to keep finishing off.
Yeah. But, you know, it's about raising awareness, and being aware is the first step to being able to make a change, isn't it? So
absolutely it is, yeah. And I suppose the guiding sort of, or summary statement really of what we've just spoke about is trust your heart, be brave and trust your heart. But in today's modern world of external pressures and fear-driven this and fear-driven that, everything invariably revolves around our head and the stories we tell ourselves. And it was the Sioux tribe, I believe, that coined the phrase, the longest journey you will ever make is from your head to your heart.
Yeah.
And that's very true, isn't it? Because we're frightened to trust our heart.
Yes, because it feels unknown somehow. It feels like mysterious or yeah.
But the actual irony of that, is it not, that okay, so we're not going to trust our heart, we'll let our head do the guiding. Well, that's like, I mean, it just goes all over the place. You know, I call it 1 and 1 makes 6. You know, the stories that go through our mind, through experiences that come up from our subconscious into our consciousness, and we just create this whole myriad of fear-driven untruths. So best we actually play with the heart instead, because one, it's a million times lighter, it's beautiful, and life becomes fun, it becomes playful, it becomes loving, it becomes deep, purposeful, meaningful. And that's certainly, you know, I'm speaking from my own experience. Some listeners may be able to resonate with this, some won't, you know, but hopefully something, Rebecca, somewhere along the line with this beautiful conversation, this very variety-driven conversation, which has evolved really from one that was, we thought, I mean, there's a statement, we thought. What gives you the right, Paul, to say what we thought? You don't know what I thought. No, but my mind thinks it does. Anyway, I don't want to go down another rabbit hole, listeners. Rebecca, I just want to invite you in at this stage to share your own contact details, because you have actually, you know, there's a few things that you do outside being a director of World Game Changers, isn't there?
Yeah, a few bits and pieces flying around. So yes, if you go to my website, it's RebeccaWheele.com. We'll put it in the link below on the comments, show notes. And so yes, I do art and design and illustration. I've just recently qualified as a massage therapist, so there's kind of a journey talking about the feeling realm. That's very much in that realm. Starting to do coaching, very much in the personal development space. So yeah, please do get in contact if you would like to. I'd love to hear from you.
Superb. Okay, so anything to close, Rebecca? Any other thoughts, any kind of summary, conclusion, anything at all really, just to close off this very I want to say variety-driven episode, conversation dance, call it what you will. I've really enjoyed it, because we've ended up in a place that was not even remotely thought about.
Yeah, it's actually been a very unexpected podcast, but in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
In a beautiful way. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the art of conversation, listeners, isn't it? Whether, you know, you're standing in a bus queue and you get, you know, the bus is late, so you strike up a conversation with the person next to you, and then you find yourself, you know, they're telling you about their pet goldfish, or, you know, the bank manager stopped the overdraft. It doesn't matter what it is, but that is connection, isn't it? That's love in action. And really, when you wait up, you know, isn't that what it's all about, that dance of love? That's what it's all about, surely. And on that pseudo-romantic note, and it's not even romantic, so I don't even know where that word come from, but But listeners, I'm going to sign off now because I'm waffling, and there's enough waffles and there's enough that's took place today. So I'm going to sign off now, listeners, the way I always do, by saying, remember, the world's changing. How will you respond?
Thanks very much for listening to this World Game Changers podcast episode. Hopefully you found it interesting and helpful. Drop a line to Paul at worldgamechangers.org with any thoughts or questions you may have, and he'll be more than happy to respond. Remember, the world's changing. How will you respond?